Calgary home prices have reached new heights as July is the 7th consecutive month for price increases all over the city. So let's go check it out. Hello, my name is Adam Fyfe, your Calgary Realtor. Now, if you're interested in these numbers and you want to create a game plan, strongly recommend you book a Zoom call in my calendar linked below. It is absolutely crazy out there. I don't think there's any slowing down in sight. So let's go dive into those numbers. So let's start this off to see what the Calgary Real Estate Board has written about July 2023. Now, rising rates had little impact on sales this month as 2,600 sales represented a year-over-year gain of 18%, reflecting the strongest July levels ever recorded. Now, a lot of this is brought to you by the affordable condo complexes that is mainly in the downtown area. Now, if we look at the year-to-date sales, there's actually a decline of 19%. So sales have fallen compared to this time of last year, but the demand is still evident. So where are all those new listings and where's all this demand coming from? There was a minimal impact on inventory levels, which remain near July record lows in 2006, meaning that Calgary hasn't seen a market this hot since 2006. Now, 13-14 was another really good reference point, but it is pretty wild to see that 2006 is what they're referring to. Conditions continue to favor the seller, which is very self-explanatory out there. There's a lot of offers on each individual house. We continue to struggle with supply in the resale, new home, and rental markets, resulting in further upward pressure on home prices, especially the rental market. I will be recording a video this month giving a rental update because the rental prices out there have gone through the roof. I feel very bad for renters out there, especially who are new here. Not very fair for a lot of them. Rents are increasing by a dramatic amount. The unadjusted total residential, so all property types, benchmark prices reached $567,000, marking the 7th consecutive month for gains. Now, this is pretty wild. So let's start to break this down and figure out what this means for your personal situation. So before I get started here, I wanted to go over this graph again really quickly. So the red bar is the price point. You can see that there was actually a slowing down in price, which is great to see. You can see that in April, May, June, that the gap from the previous month was quite vertical, whereas now June, July, you can see that it's somewhat leveled off, which is really good to see. The blue bar is inventory and the green bar is sales. I was really nervous last month that the inventory and sales were going to get closer and closer, which would clearly indicate a stronger upwards in price. But this month you can see that the gap has actually gotten as large as it was in March, which is really good to see. So the sales have slowed down and the inventory has ticked up ever so slightly. This is a really good sign for total residential that the prices might not increase as dramatically as what they were in April, May, and June. So if you're curious of what benchmark is, what's benchmark price, there is specific attributes for that. Now you can see that for the benchmark home in Calgary, so where we get all those benchmark prices for total residential, it is a 3-bedroom home with an unfinished basement. It has 2 full bathrooms and 1 half bathroom. It is a double attached garage, 1,300 square feet above grade, forced air, natural gas, and built in 2001. So when you see total residential, this is what you would get for that price point. So that $567,000, this is what you would get for that price. So let's start to break it down into a little bit more of an exciting chart. So the total benchmark that we just saw, $567,000, has actually increased by $32,000 in the last year. So July to July, it's increased by 5.7%. You can see that the detached home, which has its own benchmark attributes, which I'll talk into my future videos, has gone up 7.6%, inching up to 690, which is an increase by 52,000. You can see the semi-detached, the townhouse, and the apartment sector. Pretty crazy to see how townhouses have actually seen the largest increase of $55,000 for something as cheap as a townhouse is here in Calgary. So if you're curious to see what's going on in the townhouse market, make sure to watch the townhouse video. Now, this next slide here, I'm not going to touch on. Feel free to pause the video and look through what the Calgary Real Estate Board has written about each individual property type. All I can say is that if you want to dive into it, make sure to book a call with me and we can go into this in a lot more detail for your personal situation. So I'm not going to dive into this too much, but this is kind of the macro outlook of total residential, so all property types morphed into one stat. I don't really touch on this too much, but it is kind of good to know. So you can see some trends here. So April, May, June, you can see that these sales have actually decreased all the way back down to April levels at 2,600 sales per month. The new listings have decreased pretty much down to the April levels as well. It went from 3,900 listings last month to only 3,200 listings this month. The inventory has upticked ever so slightly, so there's still 3,400 homes left over at the end of the month. The days on market has stayed relatively flat since April at 23 days. You can see that the price point has increased pretty dramatically even since January of this year. Here's a quick map of the city. If you're curious about what your quadrant is worth, you can see that there is some different areas of town. You can see that East Calgary has seen an absolutely dramatic increase in price of almost 18% year over year. It's still only 389,000 for that total residential, which we were looking at, and then everywhere else is still seeing some increases. The first negative that we will most likely see is in the city center, staying relatively flat. But let's continue on. So here's the microeconomic breakdown for each individual quadrant in Calgary and each individual property type as well. Now, I won't touch on this too much today because I will break this down in a lot more detail, but you're gonna see a couple reds, and this is the first time we've seen a couple reds on this microeconomic breakdown. You can see that city center, detached apartments, and semi-detached have all seen a decrease in price. $85, $600, and over $900 decrease from the previous month. So we are starting to see some decreases, but they're very, very minimal. So this is kind of interesting to note. Now, if you want to dive into this a little bit more, I would tell you to pause the video, give it a watch, and then email me your questions, and I can help explain this a little bit better for you. So I'm going to finish it off with this. Now, this is a visual representation of price point here in Calgary. Where is it going to end? I'm not sure. The interest rate increases have definitely slowed people down. They have reduced their buying power, and we're maybe starting to see some seasonal correction. So if we look at 2022, you can see that there was a drop going into the winter. Realistically speaking, we're going to most likely see some sort of decline in price going into the winter. It happens every single year. If you look at 2018, 19, 2020 was a little bit of an anomaly, and 2021, same idea, but for the most part, prices will decrease. Now, how does this reflect your personal situation? You need to book a Zoom call, because at the end of the day, there are so many people moving here that demand for Calgary real estate is still very hot. I mean, if we look at this net migration, this is all the way back from January of this year. You can see that they have recorded 51,000 people migrating to Alberta. This is not just Calgary, this is Alberta as a whole. There's a lot of people moving here, and there's just not enough housing starts to actually uphold that demand. Now, this is a really cool one here from the Owl. Now, this is from May 2023. Housing starts are up slightly in April, but begin 2023 a little bit softer. I would argue that we're still feeling a little bit of the pandemic. A lot of people still trying to find their way. The development permits in Canada are definitely a lot more delayed than some other countries. It's a really slow process to get things started, but we are seeing a better impact from those, but it's not enough to offset a lot of the demand that comes here. And then this is, again, just more of a visual chart to show you kind of where we're at. You can see in 2021 and 2022, we had a pretty good amount of housing starts. What happened in 2023, I couldn't actually explain why the heck we're so low, but I can tell you right now we need to speed this up. So if you have any questions and you're looking to create a game plan, this was just a very brief summary, a highlight. I hope it was less than 10 minutes. I will be uploading individual property type videos in the next few weeks or a few days, so make sure to keep an eye out for that. Make sure to like the video if you like it, comment, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.